Designing a media strategy that aligns with your customer preferences can create deeper connections and drive meaningful growth.
So, we work with a large furniture retailer that has an in-store offering for food.
Site selection is pivotal for any physical business looking to attract and retain customers.
So just understanding, what's going on in the marketplace, a lot of due diligence, shop your competition, do it as much as you can.
Welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, SK. Today, we dive into a crucial topic for small business owners: data driven decision making and its impact on strategic growth. With rapid changes in demographics, consumer behaviors, and digital trends, understanding and leveraging analytics has never been more vital for small businesses in Canada. Today, we are thrilled to have Michael Scida. With over 18 years of experience across diverse sectors like retailing, gaming, real estate, and financial services, Michael specializes in delivering data driven insights. His expertise helps clients pinpoint top locations, optimize media mix, and harness omnichannel strategies to achieve sustainable growth. Michael, welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. How are you doing today?
Great, yourself?
Doing great. Thank you for asking. Michael, in Canada, demographics are constantly evolving with shift in population, immigration, and interprovincial movement. How can small businesses leverage these demographic trends to better understand and serve the local customer base?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's quite a few resources out there. I think the onus has to be primarily on the small business owner. So I think they need to stay on top of trends, whether, that's through different media sources, or other sources in the industry that they can find. But I think they need to certainly stay on top of things. But I think also there's some really great self-service tools that they could leverage. If they're part of an industry association, for example, whether that be part of the Retail Council of Canada or the Franchise Association, I think there's some resources that they post. There's also quite a few good resources on different municipalities. So if they're part of a municipality that they're thinking of entering a business into, or they already have an established business, I think there's certainly a lot of resources that they can leverage in there from an open data perspective. But there's a lot going on in Canada right now. There's a ton, so there is quite a bit of challenge for the small business owner. But that's kind of where we come in. So that's kind of our bread and butter, and we stay on top of these things. We have a close relationship with Immigration Canada. We publish demographic data annually. So if there is a need for a small business owner, we certainly have a lot of those resources in house to help them stay on top of things.
Okay, that's very insightful, Michael. Understanding these trends truly empower small and medium businesses to connect with their audience. As of December 2021, a small business SMBs employed around 8.2 million Canadians, making up to 67.7% of private workforce. How can the small businesses leverage these demographic trends to understand better and serve their local customers?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that answer. So I think the first part is primarily understanding kind of what's going on in the market they serve, right? So I think just understanding their market intimately. The second part of that is really understanding the visiting demographic. So who's going to their shopping centers? Who's going to the plazas? Who's going to the malls? And those could be two completely different things. If you look at areas like the Eaton Center, for example, I would venture to guess that the Eaton Center gets more people from living outside of the area than inside the area. And also, if you look at other areas like the Designer District around Caledonia and Eglinton, there's very few people that live there, yet they have a ton of foot traffic. So I think it's understanding who's going to the area, but also understanding the opportunity that resides in the area. And again, similar to my last response, there are self-service tools out there that help the small business owner capture kind of what's going on today. Because what happened yesterday is not necessarily kind of what's going on today, and what's happening today is not necessarily happening. Understanding what's going to happen in the future, right? So, I think it's just staying on top of those trends. We do a lot of this work, and Canada has changed some of its policy over the last little while. I think they were targeting somewhere around 500,000 people per year over the next 3 years from a permanent residency perspective. That's downgraded a little bit. I think they've realized that that's a little bit unsustainable. Whether that's from jobs, living, cost of living, all that stuff. So I think that's a little bit unsustainable. So they've downgraded those to somewhere around 20-25%. So over the next couple of years, we're going to see somewhere around 370 to 390,000 permanent residents per year. Um, a little bit of a surprise, they also downgraded some of the expectations on non-permanent residency. So these are people coming into the country, students, temporary workers, migrants, asylum seekers. So that's kind of when that's kind of been what's driving the growth over the last little while. I think last year there was about 800 or 900,000 just temporary residents that have come in the last year. So
It was a huge number.
it was a huge number. So that's put a lot of strain on things. So just understanding, where those people have come from, the countries that they're coming from is also important because it also helps kind of service them, right? So just understanding where they're coming from, where they're residing when they do come into the country, and just what the expectation on some of those numbers might be going forward.
Right. Could you share any example like how businesses have successfully adapted to these changes?
Yeah. So we work. So I work primarily in the QSR and the retail space. So we work with small and large businesses alike. But I would say their challenges are all very similar. It's just trying to understand and make sense of their business, right? They're trying to bring in more people. They're trying to understand their customers. So we work with a large furniture retailer that has an in-store offering for food. So they took a look at some of the markets that they operate in or the stores that they operate in, and they've actually changed some of their menu to better service people coming into the store, the visiting demographic. I worked retail for 18 years, and a lot of things, sometimes it could be as simple as switching, some in-store signage to better service, languages of the local community. Getting employees into the store that speak languages of the community and better connecting with the customer. Because imagine if you're coming into the store and you don't know how to speak the language or you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to have a good experience. So it's just getting the people into the stores that speak those languages, understanding who's coming into the store. But I think it's also understanding where the opportunity resides. Something that's come out over the last, I'd say, since COVID, pretty much. We've seen some of this migration towards smaller communities outside of the city, and I think a lot of that has to do with the cost of living in places like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. So we've seen this outward migration. People leaving the big cities, going into some of these smaller communities. Areas like Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, areas along the 401 like London, Guelph. Just these fringe communities close to the city, they've had explosive growth. Eastern Canada, the Maritimes, has had unprecedented growth over the last 5 years. So it's really just understanding, in some of these secondary communities where the population's, somewhere between 100,000, 200,000, what is the opportunity? Right. I talked to an economic development minister from Cape Breton the other day, and they didn't have enough resources in that city to service all the people coming into the city. So imagine that's a great problem to have, but from a small business owner, that presents tremendous opportunity for future growth.
Thank you so much for sharing these insights. I believe these insights into demographic trends highlight a foundational approach for businesses to grow. Up next, let's dive into a critical factor shaping consumer behavior, foot traffic in retail spaces. As everyone knows, foot traffic, whether in stores or online, gives a clear pulse of consumer behavior and habits. What key trends in retail and digital foot traffic should small businesses pay attention to right now?
Yeah, so that's another good question. Coming out of COVID, foot traffic and digital traffic were all over the place. So if we had looked at historical values, it would not have been a good indicator of just understanding where the future was headed. We saw explosive growth on the digital side. We had, depending the type of industry you were in, grocery was up somewhere around 18% of their total purchases were now happening on ecom. Retail saw unprecedented growth. But what has happened coming out of COVID is those numbers have plateaued out.
Right.
We didn't see the growth. We don't see the growth that we saw out of COVID. They've essentially plateaued out and they've remained pretty stable coming out of COVID. And that presents a huge challenge for a retailer in just understanding, what does my business look like going into the future? In terms of foot traffic, again, foot traffic was all over the place. And foot traffic, a lot of it is tied to kind of what's happening in the industry. There's economic pressures. people don't necessarily want to go into the store and make some of those big purchases. They think a little bit longer before making some of those purchases, especially the bigger ones. But we see some of our mixed use malls, which is primarily downtown. A lot of that is tied to back to work.
Right.
And if back to work hasn't returned, that mall traffic hasn't returned.
Right.
But on the flip side, we've seen some of our suburban locations, those suburban mall locations, they've had explosive growth, almost to the point where they're past their pre-COVID numbers. So it's been an interesting shift in how people are, doing some of their shopping. We're seeing that, some of the trip trends, they're not quite at the elevated levels that we saw pre-COVID, but now people are just doing more of those mindful purchases. They're going, instead of going to the mall 3 times or going to the store 3 times, they're going once and doing that purchase. But it'll be interesting to see, I hear a lot of rumblings in the industry of, people going back to work, and they're going back to work in higher numbers.
Right.
Uh, Walmart just announced that they're going back 4 or 5 days. Our company is probably going back 3 days. I have a lot of friends on the financial services side, and they're going back 4 days a week. So it'll be interesting. I would venture to guess that those mixed use malls, which have been suffering for so long downtown, they're going to see a big uptick in traffic. And one thing that we did notice, when back to work came, I think it was in mid 2022, we did see some industries like flourish. We saw, traffic was up at, female clothing stores, at makeup stores, at shoe stores. And we did some digging. We're like, wow, this doesn't really make sense to us. But then, the more digging we did, it was just people doing back to work shopping.
Right.
So, COVID had happened. Their fashion sense had not changed over the last couple of years. So then, they went back to the stores to do those refreshes of their wardrobe, because they were going back into the office. So a lot of it is tied to kind of what's going on in the industry, whether it be economic pressures, whether it be back to work, but some interesting trends ahead, that's for sure.
Right, absolutely, Michael. I totally agree with you. The way people interact with brands physically and digitally has shifted so much. Are there any tools or resources that can help small businesses monitor and interpret these trends effectively?
Yeah, there's some really good tools out there right now. So, it's been around for a little bit while, but we're now able to leverage mobile movement data. So this is privacy compliant data that companies are able to grab, essentially, grab data off people's apps that they have on their phone. um, so they can see with some degree of certainty that this person was in this location and they went to this location in this amount of time. So there are some really good tools out there where there's a bunch of data aggregators that they put together. They put a lot of this data together and they say, okay, I see that this many people were in this mall at this time. So there's some really good tools in understanding how people are moving, where they're going to, what is the interaction between different locations. And for a small business owner, that's imagine telling a small business owner, you said, if they were trying to think between 2 or 3 different locations, that, my business is driven primarily from foot traffic. We could say, okay, that shopping center has, 30% more foot traffic than the other shopping center you were looking at. So there's some really, really good tools out there in measuring foot traffic. And not only measuring foot traffic, but understanding, the times that people are coming. Think about businesses that are driven on time, day parts and time parts. So, like a drive-through business that deals primarily with, restaurant or breakfast traffic. They want to make sure that they have the right amount of traffic in the times that they need it. Otherwise, what's the point of it opening? Same with a business that, a restaurant business, for example. If they're thinking of a shopping center that has high traffic, during the hours of 9 to 5, what's the point? They need traffic during the hours of 5 to 11, right?
Right.
So there's some really good tools out there measuring foot traffic. Same on the digital front. We can tap into some large telecom data and just understanding what the digital trends are and tying it back down to a household level and understanding, who's visiting certain websites at different times in the areas that a small business owner may consider.
And where can the business access the tools that you have mentioned?
They can call me. So Environics does have a self-serve tool
Okay.
to understand demographics. But if a client or a business owner was looking in foot traffic, we can make some of these tools available to them as well. Yeah.
To our listeners out there, knowing where and how people engage with your brand can set your strategy on a path to success. Keep following these tips to stay competitive. And next, let's talk about another game changer, the site selection and location planning. Site selection is pivotal for any physical business looking to attract and retain customers. Michael, what factors should small businesses consider when selecting the best site location?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think understanding the goal of the business. Who's the business trying to attract? Um, are they a destination shop, or are they a shop that is driven primarily just from foot traffic? Um, so I think certainly from a site characteristic perspective, some of the stuff that I talked about. So understanding foot traffic trends. Just saying are the right people in this market at the right times that I need it to be. That's kind of one thing. Even just understanding accessibility into a site. Is the site easy to get into? I can't tell you how many times there's certain shopping malls in Toronto that I just won't go to because I got to make a hard left, or coming out of it's going to be a little bit difficult. I was at Lowe's for 18 years, and we had looked for a store in the Etobicoke market for a very, very long time, and we thought we found it, and it was a great billboard on the highway. It was just off 401 in Islington.
Mhm.
Excellent billboard, right part of the market, just wrong dot on the map, right?
Okay.
So we should have been on the opposite side of
Right.
the 401. And the problem was that customers just didn't know how to get into.
Mhm.
They thought they were getting they thought they were getting onto the highway.
Mhm.
People were a little bit nervous, so accessing it. So we tried to
Confusion was there, right?
ton of confusion, right? So accessibility was a huge issue. Again, excellent billboard is just people just didn't know how to get into the store. So I think understanding, accessibility in and out. Also, I think the onus has to be on the small business owner a little bit. So, I always encourage some of our clients, like, go shop the market, go see your competition. What are they doing? Again, I was on the grocery side where, we would go into, every grocery store to every market that we were considering. We would see how many people were in that store. How much was there? 20 people? Was there 30 people? Do they have shopping carts? Because if they have a shopping cart, chances are they're doing a big purchase. If they have, just the handheld carts, chances are they're doing a little bit of a smaller purchase. So, you know, given the time that people were in the store, we could assign a value to that. We think that customer is worth $100 or $150. That's probably changed now because food has gone up in price
Right.
over the last 10 years. So, just shopping the market, understanding what the competition is doing. If I'm a coffee shop owner or a bakery owner, I just want to see, at 9 a.m., how many people are in the store, right? So just understanding, what's kind of going on in the market. Also understanding like the visiting demographics. We talked a little bit about that. Just understanding, if I do have a site in mind, what do the demographics of the visiting customer look like? Does it align with the people that I'm trying to attract? So that's a big thing as well. And then understanding opportunity in the market. So, if I'm a bakery owner, what is the opportunity for me to sell bread in this market? I just dealt with a client who was thinking of opening up a bakery, but beyond that, they were thinking of opening up a sourdough bakery.
Okay.
So just specialize in sourdough
Mhm.
bread and stuff like that. So we sat down and we said, okay, how many people are in this market? How many people are visiting? He had worked out a number in his head that he said, I need this many people to walk into my store on any given day. So we figured, based on people in the area, traffic, that it was going to be a good fit. But we also looked at, what's bread expenditure in this market? And we can get at that levels. There are some really good resources out there that can get you to that level, just helping you understand what is the opportunity.
And I think this data is very, very important for any business who want to expand to a new market or new location. And I believe that the location insights that you have shared, it's a very great and good perspective. Location can make or break the convenience and appeal of a business. We will be back after a short break to discuss finding your ideal customers. Stay tuned.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
4 billion people check their email every day. That's 4 billion missed opportunities if your message doesn't make it. To reach your customer's inbox, you need a winning strategy. And Constant Contact delivers. Literally, over 97% deliverability. Elevate your email game with easy-to-use templates, writing assistants powered by AI, and in-depth metrics. Ensuring your email is flawless, delivered, and read. Constant Contact delivers. Give it a try.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, we're in the business of you.
We're here to help you plug in,
connect, and recharge.
make an impression,
and meet with confidence.
With 19 brands built for business,
your business gets even more rewarding.
With an award-winning loyalty program at 6,000 IHG hotels and resorts worldwide.
Welcome back. We are excited to continue our conversation with Michael on customer targeting strategies. Up next, let's explore how to identify and reach new customers who share your target audience's characteristics. Expanding your customer base can fuel growth, but it's all about reaching the right audience. Michael, could you share tips for identifying and attracting more look-alike customers to small businesses?
So I would encourage all small business owners to invest something into a POS system that allows them to capture customer data. If it's a more of a budget conscious business owner, even manual postal codes of your customers. So just understanding, because we're understanding who your customer is the fundamental principle in just building your client base and understanding where you can find more of them. So, if you deal primarily with online and you're more of an in-store pickup, so make sure you're capturing the building postal code, because that can tell you a lot about the customer. If you ship to home, make sure you're capturing the ship to home postal code. If you do in-store purchases, see if you can roll out some kind of loyalty program, or you can even just ask, would you feel comfortable giving your postal code today? So if you can tie postal code with cost and total shop that they're doing into the store, that's going to be the key to understanding where you can find more of them. Because you have the postal code, you can find out, what's the demographic of my customer, where are they coming from? What is their ethnicity? How old are they? Do they have kids at home? And that's going to be the fundamental principle in just finding more lookalike customers. It doesn't need to be crazy sophisticated. It can even be in Excel. I've done this on the client side for sure. But just doing that customer capture and capturing as much data as you can, because if you have customer data, that's gold. That is as good as it's going to get. Yeah.
Right. That's fantastic, Michael. It's clear that understanding customer preferences helps businesses stay very competitive. Now, are there any particular analytics or metrics that can help businesses track and refine their targeting strategies?
Yeah. So I think we go back to, I think the first part of that is just understanding who's going into your store or who's shopping you, right? So it's just a deep understanding of that customer. And it goes back to getting that customer capture. And I think if we have a deep understanding of who that customer might be, we figure out the best way of connecting with them. We may figure out that your customer prefers to be contacted through, traditional mail, or they prefer to talk to somebody, so maybe it's going to be a phone call, or they don't resonate with those media types at all. We figure out, the best way of connecting with them is through some kind of digital outreach, whether that, that be a personalized offer on email or some other means. But I think if you understand, who your customers are, it'll give you the opportunity to best connect with them from a media marketing standpoint.
Right. As you rightly said, knowing your customers and finding similar audiences is very essential for scaling. Our last topic will be our last topic brings us to using data insights, as you discussed, and to shape effective media and marketing strategies. Marketing success lies in reaching your audience where they are with the right message. Michael, how can small businesses design a media mix that maximizes their outreach while being budget friendly?
Yeah, I think my response to this will probably be pretty similar to the last response I gave you. But I think it goes back to having a deep understanding of who that customer is, right? So I think gone are the days of, blanketed marketing. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. And I go back to my retail side where, we had a store in BC and it wasn't performing well at all. we did some digging, and what ended up coming out of that that deep dive is just we weren't connecting with the customer in the right way, and we weren't connecting the right way. We weren't connecting in the right areas, right? So it goes back to understanding who your customers are, finding those lookalike customers, and finding more of them, but also finding the best way of connecting with them. So in this particular scenario, we said, uh, we were trying to digitally outreach a lot of these customers. It was a heavy South Asian community. They just didn't respond in the way that we had wanted. So we switched up the areas that we were looking in. We switched up the way we were connecting with these customers. We sent some of them some digital offers. We sent some of them some traditional offers, whether it be traditional mail or stuff like that. And it was like a light switch went off overnight, and we had double digit sales. Obviously, we don't have examples like that, throughout the industry. But I think it's just figuring out the best way of connecting with these customers. And we may find out that some of them prefer to be connected through digital offers. Some of them prefer to connected through traditional means. So it's just understanding how they're spending time on different media sources. Do they go online? If they are online, what websites are they hitting? So just figuring out the best way of connecting with these customers and a message that'll best resonate with them to get them into the store.
Absolutely, Michael. Small businesses need to be strategic, especially when budgets are tight. A lot of small businesses, they are engaged in different type of activities. Thank you so much, Michael, for these actionable insights
Thanks.
on building a media mix. Designing a media strategy that aligns with your customer preferences can create deeper connections and drive meaningful growth. As we wrap up, Michael, what's your top piece of advice for small businesses looking to adapt, data-driven strategies in 2025?
Yeah, I would say a lot of due diligence on their end. So just understanding kind of what's happening in the marketplace. We've obviously seen some of our immigration numbers change, to the point where I actually think we may have an either stagnant or declining population over the next couple of years until we rebound a bit. Because there are a lot of people that were in the country from a temporary residence perspective, that are now going to be forced to leave over the next couple of years. So I think somewhere to the tune of like 1.5 million. So it's a huge number. So just understanding, what's going on in the marketplace, a lot of due diligence, shop your competition, do it as much as you can, figure out kind of what's working, what's not working. But just stay on top of the digital, some of the data trends. Data moves very, very fast. I always joke that, it's not a data problem, it's an insights problem. So, there could be so many data points out there, but it's really just matching up, the different data points that are relevant. Don't look at the ones that paint the picture that you wanted to paint. Look at these multiple data sources. Stay on top of the trends. I think we're going to see some interesting things coming back from back to work happening. But I think it's going to be certainly a fast pace. It'll be interesting to kind of see what happens, as mortgage or interest rates we see relief in that end, what that does to consumer confidence in shopping. Because what we've seen over the last little while is that customers, they're hanging onto their wallet a little bit longer. They're a bit more mindful when making some of these purchases, and they're just taking a little longer than maybe some retailers would like. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what comes out of this over the next year.
What is the easiest way for our listeners to connect with you and your organization?
Yeah, so it's Michael Scida on LinkedIn. If you want to visit our website, it's EnvironicsAnalytics.com. You can toggle between the retail page or some of our data pages. Gives a ton of information out there. So LinkedIn or via our website, Michael.Scida at EnvironicsAnalytics.com. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was a great pleasure hosting you today.
Yeah, thanks to be. Thanks.
In today's episode, we had the pleasure of speaking with Michael Scida, whose expertise spans multiple industries. We discuss how businesses can harness data-driven insights for demographic trends, foot traffic, and optimize media strategies. We'd like to express our gratitude to our partners, RBC, UPS, Constant Contact, IHG Hotels and Resorts, and Google for the invaluable support in making this podcast possible. To our listeners out there, don't miss out on more insights and expert advice. Visit our official website at CanadianSME.ca to subscribe to the Canadian SME Small Business Magazine. See you in the next episode, and thank you for tuning in.